Imagine a world where your every decision determines the fate of entire civilizations, where one misstep means obliteration and one brilliant tactic carves your name into eternity. Picture men so fearsome, so brilliant in the art of war, that entire empires bent beneath their will, trembling not just at their armies, but at their minds. These were not mythical demigods, they were real, flesh and blood warriors who rose from turbulent worlds to dominate their eras with unmatched martial prowess. Today we count down the 5 greatest real-life warriors of ancient society, beginning with a Roman genius whose ambition redrew the map of Europe and ending with the most legendary conqueror in history. Men who turned chaos into conquest and became immortal not through myth, but through blood, strategy, and steel. At number 5 stands Julius Caesar, a name so steeped in power that it evolved into a title used by emperors for centuries, Kaiser, Tsar, all echoing his legacy. But Caesar's path to dominance was not paved with ease. Born into a patrician family during a volatile era of the Roman Republic, he had to navigate treacherous political waters, deadly rivals, and the ever-watchful Senate. His brilliance first exploded onto the world stage during the Gallic Wars. With cunning, charisma, and military precision, Caesar subdued a vast region of tribal Gaul, stretching Roman control all the way to the English Channel. The Battle of Alesia in 52 BCE marked his crowning achievement, a masterstroke where he built 2 sets of fortifications to besiege and simultaneously defend against a massive relief army. Surrounded and outnumbered, Caesar's legions held the line, crushing Vercingetorix's uprising and cementing Roman supremacy. But military conquest was just one facet of Caesar's genius. He understood the theater of power. He crossed the Rubicon River in defiance of Rome's Senate, igniting a civil war that would end the Republic itself. His rapid victory over Pompey and his dictatorship would transform Roman governance forever. Yet Caesar's greatness bred envy. On the Ides of March, 44 BCE, he was stabbed 23 times by senators who feared his power. His death plunged Rome into further civil war, and though the Republic perished, his legacy lived on. Augustus, his adopted heir, became the first emperor of Rome. Caesar had not just won battles, he had redefined Roman destiny. At number 4, we travel to the windswept deserts and burning plains of the Arabian Peninsula to meet Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Sword of Allah, a warrior so formidable that his enemies whispered his name in fear. Born into the Quraysh tribe in Mecca, Khalid originally fought against the Prophet Muhammad at the Battle of Uhud. But fate turned dramatically. After converting to Islam, he rapidly rose to become one of the most effective commanders in Islamic history. Unlike many warriors of the ancient world, Khalid didn't command massive empires or lead huge bureaucracies. He led with speed, adaptability, and sheer force of will. At the Battle of Mu'tah, with only 3,000 men, he held off a Byzantine army 10 times his size and led a strategic withdrawal without total collapse, a feat that earned him the Prophet's personal admiration. But his most iconic moment came at the Battle of Yarmouk in 636 CE. Facing a Byzantine force of over 100,000, Khalid's smaller army used desert maneuvering, fake retreats, and synchronized cavalry strikes to completely rout the superior enemy force. It wasn't just a victory, it was the beginning of the end for Byzantine dominance in the Levant. Khalid's brilliance lay in his use of mobile warfare, turning barren landscapes into lethal battlegrounds. He fought over 100 battles and never lost. Yet, despite his unparalleled record, political shifts saw him dismissed from command by Caliph Umar, who feared Khalid's growing fame. He died in 642 CE, not on a battlefield, but in bed, a fate he deeply lamented. "I've fought so many battles," he reportedly said, "and yet I die like a camel." When he died, the Islamic Empire did not collapse. but surged forward, built on the momentum of his campaigns. His strategies influenced military doctrine for centuries and helped shape one of the fastest expanding empires in human history. Number 3 brings us to the rugged mountains of ancient Greece, where a single king and his small band of warriors made their final stand against the might of an empire. Leonidas I, the king of Sparta, was born into a society obsessed with war. Trained from childhood in the brutal Spartan agage, Leonidas embodied the ultimate warrior ethos: discipline, endurance, and death before dishonor. But it was in 480 BCE, during the Persian invasion under Xerxes I, that Leonidas achieved immortality. At the narrow pass of Thermopylae, he led 300 Spartan warriors and a few thousand Greek allies against an army estimated in the hundreds of thousands. Knowing they were doomed, Leonidas held the line for 3 days, using the geography of the pass to neutralize the Persians' numerical advantage. Even when betrayed and flanked, he refused to retreat. His death was gruesome. Overwhelmed and surrounded, Leonidas fell alongside every Spartan he led. But their sacrifice bought crucial time for the rest of Greece to rally and ultimately repel the Persian invasion. Leonidas's last stand became a symbol of valor against tyranny, inspiring generations with the cry, "Come and take them," his defiant reply when asked to surrender his weapons. After his death, Sparta rose to greater prominence during the Peloponnesian War, though its empire eventually faded. But Leonidas's legacy endured far beyond borders, etched into Western consciousness as the archetype of the selfless warrior king. Our second greatest real-life warrior demands a journey across the sea to the rugged hills of North Africa and the war-scarred fields of Italy. Hannibal Barca of Carthage was born into military brilliance, the son of Hamilcar Barca, who fought Rome in the First Punic War. From a young age, Hannibal was groomed to finish what his father started. Sworn to eternal enmity with Rome, he launched one of the most audacious military campaigns in history, the Second Punic War. In 218 BCE, he led tens of thousands of troops and dozens of war elephants across the treacherous Alps, a feat no one thought possible. It wasn't just an invasion, it was a declaration of genius. What followed was a series of battles that redefined military strategy. At the Battle of Trebia, Hannibal lured Roman forces into a trap with psychological precision. At Lake Trasimene, he orchestrated the largest ambush in military history. But his magnum opus came in 216 BCE at the Battle of Cannae. With just 50,000 men, he encircled and annihilated a Roman force of over 80,000, a slaughter so complete that Roman morale nearly shattered. Hannibal spent years in Italy, winning battle after battle, yet Carthage refused to send him reinforcements. Eventually, he was recalled to defend his homeland and met defeat at the Battle of Zama by a young Roman general named Scipio Africanus, who had studied Hannibal's own tactics. Though exiled and pursued for years, Hannibal remained a symbol of defiance. He ultimately took poison to avoid capture, ending his life in 183 BCE. His death marked the fading of Carthaginian power, and Rome would soon destroy Carthage completely. Yet Hannibal's legacy lived on. Even Roman generals revered his brilliance. Napoleon, Wellington, and Patton would all study his campaigns centuries later. And now, at number 1, we arrive at the Titan of Conquest, the warrior king who never knew defeat, whose name became synonymous with unstoppable ambition, Alexander the Great. Born in 356 BCE in the kingdom of Macedon, Alexander was tutored by Aristotle and forged by his father, King Philip II, into a weapon of destiny. When Philip was assassinated, Alexander assumed the throne at just 20 years old. Within 2 years, he launched a campaign that would change the world forever. First, he shattered the Persian army at the Battle of Granicus. Then came Issus, where he faced Darius III, the King of Kings, and routed a much larger force. But it was at Gaugamela in 331 BCE that Alexander's tactical genius reached its peak. Faced with hundreds of thousands of Persian troops and war elephants, Alexander used a brilliant feint maneuver to punch a hole in Darius's lines and force his flight. With this single battle, the Achaemenid Empire collapsed, and Alexander became ruler of Persia. Yet he didn't stop there. He marched eastward, founding cities, spreading Hellenistic culture, and conquering Afghanistan and parts of India. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River, he faced King Porus and his war elephants in a bloody and brutal fight, but emerged victorious again. What made Alexander truly great was not just battlefield brilliance, but vision. He encouraged cultural blending, wore Persian dress, married local princesses, and envisioned a unified empire of East and West. But his pace was relentless, and his men eventually refused to go further. In 323 BCE, at the height of his power, Alexander fell ill and died in Babylon at the age of 32. His sudden death left a power vacuum so vast, it tore the empire apart. His generals, the Diadochi, fought bloody wars over the fragments of his domain, carving out kingdoms like Ptolemaic Egypt and Seleucid Syria. The empire never reunited, but the world he shaped endured. Hellenistic culture flourished for centuries. Greek became the language of learning and power across 3 continents. Alexander didn't just conquer, he transformed the very fabric of the ancient world. These 5 warriors, Julius Caesar, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Leonidas, Hannibal, and Alexander, represent the pinnacle of real-life martial excellence in ancient times. Each rose from a unique crucible of conflict. Each redefined what it meant to lead, to fight, and to win. They were not gods, but through courage, brilliance, and unbreakable will, they achieved immortality. Their empires rose and fell, but their names remain etched in eternity, whispered on battlefields, immortalized in strategy halls, and remembered in every story where greatness demands a name. Julius Caesar, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Leonidas, Hannibal, and Alexander, each of these legendary warriors left a unique mark on history, yet the echoes of their deeds reverberate far beyond the battlefield. But what made them truly great was not merely martial skill or strategic cunning, it was their profound understanding of human nature, their visionary capacity to shape history, and the indelible impact of their leadership on societies they transformed. In the wake of their conquests lay not only victory and ruin, but also seeds of innovation, culture, and legacy that outlived their lifetimes. Caesar's transformation of Rome from republic to empire was as much ideological as it was military. His reformations extended into politics, citizenship, and law, cementing Rome's power and influencing governance structures for generations. His calendar reform alone reshaped the way humanity measured time, a legacy we still live by today. Moreover, his military writings, succinct and incisive, became foundational texts studied by military tacticians and political leaders centuries later. Though assassinated by those he trusted most, Caesar's death ironically secured his immortality. Instead of suppressing his influence, it magnified it, transforming him from mere mortal to legendary martyr, inspiring the reverence of future rulers who sought legitimacy in his shadow. Khalid ibn al-Walid's legacy, too, extends far beyond his battlefield achievements. His tactics laid the groundwork for cavalry-based warfare and swift mobile campaigns that redefined military doctrines in both East and West. His principles of speed, agility, and psychological warfare influenced commanders from Saladin during the Crusades to later Ottoman generals conquering Europe. More significantly, Khalid's victories weren't merely territorial. They facilitated a cultural and religious transformation that altered the demographic and spiritual map of the Middle East. His campaigns secured the rapid spread of Islam, laying the foundations for a civilization whose advancements in science, mathematics, and medicine later enriched humanity. Although he died in obscurity, stripped of command by those wary of his reputation, history restored Khalid's honor, immortalizing him as Islam's quintessential warrior. Leonidas's sacrifice at Thermopylae transcends mere military strategy, touching on deeper philosophical questions about courage, sacrifice, and the power of conviction. In choosing to die rather than retreat, he transformed defeat into victory, shaping the moral and cultural identity of an entire civilization. Leonidas's Spartan ideal of absolute discipline and valor not only inspired generations of Greek warriors, but his legacy also influenced military ethos worldwide, from the Roman legions to modern armies who invoke Spartan resilience as their model. The symbolic strength of his stand became a metaphor for defiance against overwhelming odds, a narrative that endures in modern culture, art, and storytelling. Leonidas showed that a warrior's greatness could emerge from moral strength as powerfully as from martial prowess. Hannibal Barca, despite his eventual defeat, reshaped military strategy permanently through his tactical genius and psychological acumen. His audacious campaigns in Italy, particularly his daring Alpine crossing, embodied not just courage but creative genius, redefining what generals believed possible. Hannibal introduced tactics like the double envelopment at Cannae, studied obsessively by generals millennia later. More subtly, Hannibal also influenced Rome itself, forcing it to evolve into a stronger, more resilient military power. Rome's reforms in response to Hannibal, like the professionalization of legions and changes in leadership and organization, became pivotal in shaping its subsequent dominance. Although Carthage fell, Rome's greatness thereafter owed much to lessons learned from its greatest adversary. Hannibal's ultimate defeat wasn't in battle. It was the inexorable tides of political betrayal, a theme that recurred among great warriors throughout history. But among them all, Alexander stands unique, not just as conqueror, but as a visionary who reimagined the very meaning of empire. His campaigns transcended conquest, blending cultures and promoting a fusion of ideas and practices that birthed the Hellenistic world. Cities he founded became vibrant centers of learning, culture, and science. Alexandria alone housed a library whose knowledge defined human progress for centuries. Alexander introduced the concept of cultural assimilation in governance, advocating not merely rule by force, but by shared cultural identity. Even in death, he reshaped political history profoundly. His premature passing ensured no single successor could dominate, fracturing his vast territories into rival kingdoms, each nurturing its unique version of Greek-influenced civilization. Alexander's vision of a unified world, ambitious, flawed, yet deeply human, anticipated later attempts at globalization, making him a historical figure whose ideas still resonate profoundly today. Together, these warriors remind us that true greatness transcends the battlefield. It resides equally in innovation, vision, and lasting influence. Each confronted overwhelming odds and emerged not just victorious, but transformative. Their stories are timeless precisely because they grapple with profound truths about leadership, ambition, mortality, and legacy. Julius Caesar taught us ambition's transformative yet dangerous power. Khalid ibn al-Walid embodied adaptability and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Leonidas represented the moral and ethical purity of sacrifice. Hannibal illustrated the interplay between tactical brilliance and tragic fate, and Alexander the Great showcased vision, innovation, and the lasting impact of cultural integration. These warriors' lives provoke eternal questions that continue to fascinate humanity. What is true greatness, and how do ambition and virtue interact in shaping history? Is military genius always destined for tragic ends? Can conquest create lasting unity? Or is it forever destined to fragment? The answers remain complex, elusive, and endlessly debatable. Yet their exploration fuels fascination with these legendary figures. Their victories and failures were not merely historical events, but profound commentaries on human nature itself, powerful insights that ensure their immortality. In their deaths, empires crumbled, yet their legacies endured. Caesar's empire transformed civilization. Khalid's conquests reshaped the Middle East. Leonidas's defiance inspired endless generations. Hannibal's genius revolutionized warfare, and Alexander's vision changed how cultures interacted across continents. Each death brought turmoil, yet from chaos arose new cultural orders, ideas, and innovations that continued shaping the world long after the swords ceased to clash. As we contemplate these warriors, it becomes clear that their true conquest wasn't merely land, it was time. They achieved immortality not through divine lineage or mythology, but through the unforgettable imprint they left upon history, forever shaping how humanity views war, leadership, courage, and greatness itself.